Hello, and welcome to Budget Commander. On this channel, we'll discuss Magic the Gathering topics with a focus on playing Commander on a budget. We'll cover things like deck building, top cards, deck techs, and more. Let's get started. Hello friends, today I have a budget Tatyova Benthic Druid Deck Tech for you. The budget constraints for this deck are 2 DH, meaning all the cards in the deck are $2 or less, with the exception of the Commander or General, which can be $5 or less. Total cost of this deck was $35 on the day of recording. The goal of this deck is to ramp out a bunch of lands onto the battlefield, ideally drawing us extra cards off of Tatyova, and then turning those lands into creatures and then being able to attack for lethal on our opponents with our creature land base. Starting off with accelerants, we have Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, and Simic Signet. These all tap to add mana for our mana pool. Then we have Walking Atlas, Llanowar Scout, and Ghirapur Orrery, which will allow us to play additional lands each turn. Ghirapur Orrery can also draw cards for any player that has no hand at the beginning of their turn. So 3 cards to that player. Probably not going to be us, but hopefully we'll be able to capitalize a lot more on that landfall triggers of extra lands from having Ghirapur Orrery out. But additional bonus if we get that. And then we have Rampant Growth, Search for Tomorrow, and Wood Elves, which help us get extra lands to the battlefield. Note that Search for Tomorrow you can suspend for 1 green, which is a great turn 1 play. We also have Harvest Season, Cultivate, and Far Wanderings, which help us get extra lands to the battlefield early. Far Wanderings can get us even more if it's later in the game, and we have 7 or more cards in our graveyard. Skyshroud Claim, Explosive Vegetation, and Ranger's Path all get us 2 lands to our battlefield early. Skyshroud Claim and Ranger's Path only get forests. Skyshroud Claims forests come in untapped, and Explosive Vegetation can get us anything we need, but you're usually going to want to get islands because we have a card later on that cares about the number of islands we're running. Harrow, Khalni Heart, and Dreamscape Artist all get us lands to the battlefield early. Dreamscape Artist essentially has the activated ability of Harrow, or turning all the cards in our hand into a Harrow, as we'll discard a heart card, which is like playing Harrow, sacrifice a land, which is an additional cost on Harrow, and then we can search up 2 lands and put them onto the battlefield. So, nice consistency and acceleration provided there by Dreamscape Artist. Helps us to thin our deck and hopefully get extra landfall triggers as well. Deep Reconnaissance and gets us extra lands to the battlefield early. Explore has the potential to do that and draws us a card. Waker of the Wilds is a nice mana sink that can turn our lands into giant elemental creatures. Gives them haste as well, which is always nice. Harmonize draws us 3 cards. Retreat to Coralhelm gives us a landfall trigger that allows us to scry or tap or untap a creature. And Regrowth gets us any card from our graveyard back to our hand. Mending of Dominaria puts cards from the top of our library into our graveyard, returns creatures from our graveyard to our hand, and returns lands from our graveyard to the battlefield. So kind of does a little bit of everything for us. It's one of the Saga enchantments, so each turn has a different ability. Turns 1 and 2 that you have it out do the same thing, and then turn 3 you do its 3rd ability, and then it gets sacrificed to the graveyard. Keeper of the Keys turns us into the Monarch, drawing us extra card and potentially giving our team unblockable. Future Sight allows us to play with the top card of our library revealed, and then we can play that card anytime as well. Trade Routes and Silent Prophet can all return lands back to our hand, so if we're able to play additional lands each turn, this can give us extra landfall triggers. And Silent Prophet is not only a 4/4 flyer, but she also has the activated ability of pay 2, return 2 lands you control to your hand, and then you can copy an instant or sorcery on the stack and give that copy new targets. So great utility provided by her. Just copy your opponent's stuff or potentially copy your own things. Rampaging Baloths gives us landfall triggers, giving us extra beasts. So if we're not able to get through with our lands, these beasts are a little bit bigger and can cause our opponents problems if they don't deal with the Baloth, the Rampaging Baloth right away. Kamahl's Druidic Vow allows us to pay X and a couple green to reveal the top cards of our library, and then all the lands and legendaries we get to put on the battlefield that cost X or less. So ideally you're doing this for 7 or more, because we have all of our legendaries cost 7 or less, but you know, any amount you get is great because you're going to put all the lands onto the battlefield, which just accelerates your game plan. If you have Tatyova out, draws you a bunch of cards, so great card there. Arcane Denial counters anything for us and then gives us an extra card draw. Gives our opponent that we countered 2 cards, but we're not too worried about that because usually we're going to be countering something that we're real scared of. Unwind allows us to counter a non-creature spell and then untap our lands afterwards. Nature's Claim, Broken Bond, and Trigon Predator all deal with artifacts and enchantments. Trigon Predator is a creature that needs to deal combat damage to the controller of the artifact or permanent, or artifact or enchantment. It does, however, have flying, so should be able to get it in if you can remove your opponent's flyers or they don't have any flyers. Reality Shift just exiles any creature that we don't like. Scourge of the Fleets can bounce all of our opponent's creatures to their hand, assuming we control more islands than said creature's toughness. Blatant Thievery allows us to steal just any permanent, one permanent from each of our opponents, so great card there. And that's also why I was saying you'll want to get islands, just because you got 3 blue here. Future Sight had 3 blue earlier, and then Scourge of the Fleets just benefits off of having more islands in play. Terastodon gets rid of any non-creature permanents, giving the controller of said permanent a 3/3 elephant creature token. And then you got Scute Mob, which just gets +4/+4 each upkeep if we have 5 or more lands. Not a problem with this deck. And then Malimo, Maro Sorcerer, has power and toughness equal to the lands we control and trample. So great way to get damage through with him as well. We're going to turn our lands into creatures with Natural Affinity, Sylvan Awakening, and Rude Awakening. You're going to want to make sure you entwine Rude Awakening so that you can untap those lands and attack with them. Dorrail and Nature's Revolt also turn our lands into creatures. Sylvan Advocate pumps our creatures +2/+2, or pumps our lands +2/+2. And Halimar Tidecaller and Embodiment of Insight give our creatures flying and vigilance, respectively. Guy's Anthemum pumps our whole team +1/+1. Earth Surge gives all of our lands +2/+2. Overwhelming Stampede and Predatory Rampage pump up our whole team. Overwhelming Stampede gives all of our creatures +X/+X equal to the greatest power among creatures we control. Trample in addition to that. Whereas Predatory Rampage gives our creatures +3/+3 and forces our opponents to block this turn if able. Blackblade Reforged, Strata Scythe all pump our creature really big based on the number of lands we control. Blackblade Reforged does all of our lands, and Strata Scythe does a certain land type, whether it's islands or forests. You usually want to get an exile or imprint a forest with Strata Scythe, but if you got a ton of islands out, maybe you go with islands. Dragon Throne of Tarkir essentially gives a creature the ability to activate Overwhelming Stampede turn over turn, which is a great way to get damage through as well. Then we have Throne of the God-Pharaoh, which allows us to deal damage, or our opponents lose life equal number of tapped creatures we control. Especially good on a turn where we turn all of our lands into creatures and attack with them, or we can just tap them for mana to get the Throne of the God-Pharaoh ability or trigger as well. Just make sure you stack that underneath the turn back into a land phrase, as a lot of those abilities only turn our lands into creatures until end of turn. These are both at the end. These would both trigger at the same time, so you get to choose how they stack. No special lands in this deck. We don't have any multicolored lands, utility lands, fetch lands, anything like that. Just all basics, 28 forests and 13 islands. We need our lands to come in and be able to tap right away for mana. We don't want any tap lands coming in or anything like that. So this deck can be really explosive. It's a lot of fun. It's just fun to beat your opponents up with a bunch of lands. Stats for the deck. Gets 5 stars for acceleration, as it's running 18 accelerants. 2 stars in consistency for having 14 cards that provide consistency. A single star for control, as it only has 9 cards that provide control. And then 5 stars under speed, as the average converted mana cost was 2.01 for the deck, including lands. Hope you enjoyed the deck tech. If you think this deck looks fun to play, go ahead and build it, give it a try, let me know how it goes. Otherwise, let me know what cards you think are missing from the deck. What would you add, and what cards would you swap out for them? Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace! Thanks for watching. You can help support this channel by hitting that subscribe button. This will help keep you up to date on content from Budget Commander. If you liked the video, make sure you like the video. Leave me a comment with your thoughts on this topic. And if you think someone else could benefit from this video, feel free to share. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk with you next time.